東のためなら私はどんな協力も惜しまない。
Man, Bumby really hit rock bottom after Ultimate Precure. Can't really blame him. Continuing right from where we left off last week, Lucky had noticed that the Mantis Granute's claw marks looked kind of familiar, like they might have taken off a chunk of his brother's back. At the same time, Hanto had his Frappe Gochizo look for the culprit, and interestingly enough, it had the ability to separate itself, with the cream part becoming its own entity. This is based off of an actual play feature of the toy, though even more interestingly are the names he gave them. To the genius who appreciates classic tokusatsu, I see ya. But yeah, the fact that these two are brothers, oof, that's a bit of a sad irony. Though on that note, I do have to compliment Lakia's actor Kohei Shoji's performance throughout this episode. Like, yeah, obviously, Yusuke Hino has been the acting MVP of the show, but Shoji definitely didn't slack off in this episode, like when he asked politely for Sachika's help in the investigation. Could practically feel that spit coming through the phone, couldn't you? Speaking of bodily fluids, this episode got rather graphic when showing the injuries that the Mantis managed to inflict on the riders. So much so that, yeah, I'm not actually going to show it here, considering that I've gotten almost demonetized for appearing with a paper cut in some of these videos. In any case, the two decide to regroup at Suga's lab to get patched up. Meanwhile, the members of the Stomach family were doing their own things. Thankfully, it didn't involve Longo and Jeep, as that would kind of get repetitive, and instead we focused on characters like Shoma and his crazy sister-in-law. Hey, I like blueberries too, so I get where she's coming from. But yeah, along with sharing her preferences, Liesel also shared their company's updated positions. She also thanked Shoma for offing his sister, leading to Jeep ending up with her, and she even encouraged him to damage him even more because I guess she's really into the I can fix them types. Though, yeah, I'm also pretty sure that they don't normally try to break the boys themselves. Needless to say, Jeep was kind of right to not actually be into this little psychopath. He's still creepy for turning into his sister, but I digress. All in all, this whole scene was actually an effective showing of Liesel's character, both visually with how she always seems to have a preference for sickly colors like purple and black, to even some outright statements of how she enjoys taking in the misery of people from both worlds. It makes her probably one of the better antagonists for Shoma, considering that she's pretty much the antithesis to all of his beliefs. Elsewhere, we got some uncle and nephew bonding, though not of the usual wholesome variety, as we just pointed out Shoma was with Liesel. Instead, Dente had to deal with Neville, who managed to trace Hanto's reproduction of his belt back to him, and wanted to invite him back to their company. Predictably enough, he turned down doing that one good scene from The Godfather Part 3.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
However, interestingly enough, Neville left behind a dark treat while Dente suggested that his days were numbered as he worked on something for his preferred nephew, perhaps a bag of treats he can enjoy. Back with Hanto and Lakia, we got easily the best part of this episode, as the two writers had great back and forth thanks to their actors bringing their A game. And they would have to, because as funny as their exchange in the last episode was, it did end up highlighting how little they understood about each other, which if they did, they'd realize how similar they actually are. Yeah, they both ended up bonding with Shoma due to realizing that he had suffered just as much as them, in spite of, or rather maybe because, he was a member of the Stomach family. But it was only now, through interacting with each other, that they were able to apply the transitive property of equality. But yeah, some really good stuff, including Lakia actually apologizing for making fun of Hanto in the last episode, and even more interestingly, the chocolate writer realized that maybe not all Stomach part-timers were bad if there was some like Komel. And yeah, I will say a plot point that I kind of wish they had explored a little more was the idea of Granutes going straight after getting addicted to the junk. I mean, they still might do it, but it's kind of late into the series. Plus, Japan itself in real life tends to go down really hard on drug users, which I get. I mean, it's their policies and everything. But at the same time, it's a little harsh to not give them a little bit of a chance to reform. Anyway, all of the rioters later deployed to do their thing with the baddies. This week, Shoma was delegated to dealing with the standard agent, so it wasn't anything special, other than him using his latest Gochizo augment, which was the caramel that he got from the shop owner. Oh, so this is what would have happened if each could actually weaponize some of her deadlier treats. Meanwhile, Honto and Lakia took the main fight of this week by fighting the Mantis Granute. And as usual, I have to praise this season for having some pretty unique fight scenes that take full advantage of some of the more confined spaces, like the back alleys, or this week with a construction site with rafters. It led to some pretty nice shots, and also gave Gigon at home a bit of an advantage over the riders, who relied on long-range attacks by putting up some obstacles in their way. That said, he also did have some of his own long-range attacks, like his mucus as well as his blades. Fortunately, Lakia now had a new friend who was willing to take a little snot for him. I mean, we all kind of knew that after the last episode. Of course, throughout this fight, the Mantis tried to gaslight Lakia about his little brother. However, in the end, he admitted that he knew nothing about Colbell, so yeah, he was just a red herring, and the real killer was out there somewhere. Regardless, and considering how much this villain had borrowed from Sweeny Todd, I guess it only figures he'd go out the same way as him. Just a little reminder that this show that features drug addicts and throat slitting airs on Sunday mornings for all the little kiddies. And on that note, and after our heroes had some celebratory pudding, Magen, the politician with the centipede head and the voice of a couple of Precure villains, had developed a slight thing for the dark treats. So much so that he was willing to do anything to make sure the Stomachs could stay in business as long as he could get some more of the goods. Thus, the episode ended with him getting a proposal from Nival in his human form, which fascinated the guy with a bug for a head. This was a pretty good episode, at least as far as fleshing out the characters is concerned. Standouts were of course Liesel and Lakia putting in some good performances, as well as some interesting hints at Shoma's final power-up for the season. Unfortunately, while the fights overall were still very exciting, they also didn't add much to the story, especially after the Mantis revealed that he was just a red herring. After the amazing comedy of the last episode, I guess it would only figure that this week they would try to take things a little more seriously. Which is fine, as long as it leads to some good character development like this. Lucky and Honto were really good here in finally solidifying their bonds, and moreover, I am still kind of hoping that this talk about Komel might lead to some more discussions about Granuch trying to reform, though I know the odds of that are kind of slim. Regardless, I am liking how they're building up the other villains of the show. Liesel is becoming a great foil for Shoma, with her actually enjoying the suffering of others, including her beloved hubby, and Boka is becoming a great manipulator. Nivel is also starting to step up after having taken over Suga's research, and seemingly continuing his legacy with another bitter Gavv that we'll talk more about next week. Along with that, I am curious of how they're going to tackle Shoma's final upgrade for the series, as we haven't gotten that much build up for it, but judging by the preview for next week, they are going to do something rather drastic to hype it up. Until then though, we did at least get a very unique fight this week with some great stunts. Again, it is a pity that the Mantis just turned out to be a red herring, but I also didn't totally expect them to reveal Komel's assailant just yet. So overall, while this episode was a bit more on the fillery side of things in terms of the main conflict, they are at least nicely building up the villains and heroes of the show. Whatever sort of follow-up we get next week, hopefully they won't overdo it with all the twists and turns. Thank you for watching, and if you don't need a haircut like I do, maybe you could spend your time by watching some of our other videos on this channel. We can finally start working on some bigger projects this week, as well as our regular reviews coming in the oncoming weeks. Look forward to whatever comes next. Until then though, farewell for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I need to get some more treats for my extra stomach here.